Here's me explaining Venezuela for the thousandth time. So stick around because this is going to be a long one. You see, there's a particular kind of exhaustion that doesn't come from blackouts, from fear, or hunger. We've had our fair share of those. This exhaustion comes from having to explain your own catastrophe over and over and over again to people who are convinced before you open your mouth that they already understand it better than you do. Now, this explaining Venezuela thing, it's not a conversation, it's a ritual. It's a monotonous, humiliating rite in which the Venezuelan is expected to provide testimony, caveats, footnotes, historical background, emotional restraint, and moral balance, while the listener supplies skepticism, condescension, and ideological priors. Then they correct you. Always, the correction comes in a polite form. The correction, it's always politely, it's always confidently, and they always do it wrongly. I have explained Venezuela in Parisian cafes, in Singaporean market stalls, California, weed shops, American living rooms, European universities, Latin American dinner tables, and online forums infested with experts who discovered what Caracas is through a Vox Explainer video sometime after Chavez was already dead. The accents change, the questions don't, and neither does the conclusion. Whatever you say has to be filtered, diluted, and ultimately subordinated to the listener's worldview. Because you see, the problem is not that they don't know. The problem is that they don't want to know. Now, let me break that down for you because I know it's a bit, complex and it has its fair shares. Here's the performance of listening that comes with this, Modern liberal culture prides itself on listening. We are constantly told that listening is a moral act, that centering voices is justice, that lived experience is epistemic gold. This turns out to be true for everyone, except for Venezuelans, of course. Now, why is that? Let me break it down for you. When a Venezuelan speaks about Chavismo, the response is not empathy, but interrogation. Are you sure it was that bad? Wasn't there corruption before? What about sanctions? Isn't this just American propaganda? Aren't you just parroting fringe right-wing conspiracies? Imagine telling that to a Ukrainian refugee that NATO expansion complicates their trauma. Imagine telling a Palestinian that geopolitics requires nuance before outrage. You wouldn't dare, and you wouldn't dare rightly so. But for Venezuelans, Venezuelans are expected to argue their own suffering like a doctoral thesis defense before a hostile committee. That's just fucking unfair. Listening, it turns out, it's conditional. Hear me out. And keep breaking down this for you because it is quite, let's unpack this a bit. There's the credentialed interruption that you always seem to face when you're having this sort of inconvenient conversation. At some point, always someone with credentials enters the conversation. A journalist, an academic, some bullshit NGO analyst, someone who has written about Venezuela, which apparently outranks having lived in it. This person will interrupt you, and they will do it in a gentle way, with concern in their voice and certainty in their phrasing. They will invoke data, they will tell you about reports, they will talk context, structural factors. They will explain to you that Venezuela is complex. This is the part where you as a Venezuelan realize that the conversation is over. There's nothing fucking more to say. Because complexity is not being used to understand reality. The complexity is deployed to neutralize your testimony as a Venezuelan. Your lived experience is just recast as anecdotal. It's biased, it's emotional. And meanwhile, these abstractions of someone who has never had to queue for food, has never feared a knock at the door, never watched a country rot in real time, are treated as authoritative. See the problem? This is not expertise. It is epistemic colonization. Now, as I told you, we're going to break this down. This has layers like an onion, you know. This is what happens to Venezuelans when they face this kind of bullshit over and over. The repetition breaks you. The worst part is not being disbelieved. It's the repetition, saying it over and over and over and over. You explain to them how Chavez came into power, how your institutions collapsed, how crime exploded. You explain how oil money vanished. You have to explain how repression normalized itself, how you have to be afraid of tweeting, of saying something. You have to explain about the snitches in Venezuela. You have to explain why free healthcare doesn't matter when hospitals have no medicines or electricity. You have to explain why elections without consequences are just theater, you know. And then sometimes, you know, take, for example, 6 months later, you have to do it again. The same points, the same resistance, the same smug certainty on the other side of the table. And after a while, you start to self-edit. You soften the language. You add disclaimers. You preempt objections. You over-explain. You provide moral alibis as so not to appear reactionary. And this is how your testimony gets domesticated. This is how truth gets tired. Here's why this never happens in reverse. Here's the asymmetry no one wants to admit. A Frenchman can explain France to you. A German can explain Germany. An American, well, they can even badly explain America and still be heard. No one demands that they neutralize their anger. No one accuses them of being biased because they lived it. No one tells them their experience must yield on an outsider's framework. Only Venezuelans are expected to surrender narrative sovereignty over their own disaster. And the reason is simple. Accepting Venezuelan testimony would force too many people to admit that they were wrong, intellectually, politically, morally. It would mean acknowledging that Chavismo wasn't a misunderstood experiment but a predictable catastrophe, that some of the ideas they flirt with over wine and podcasts carry mass graves as footnotes. So that's a hard pill to swallow. So instead, they ask you to explain it again. What's the cost of explaining? Well, explaining Venezuela is not cathartic, it's corrosive. It teaches you that suffering is not enough. You must also be persuasive, that survival does not confer authority, that truth requires approval from people who were never at risk. And slowly, you understand the unspoken rule. Venezuelans are allowed to suffer, but not to conclude, to testify, but not to judge, to describe, but not to indict. This is done because I am done explaining it politely. If you still don't understand Venezuela after listening to Venezuelans for a quarter of a century, the problem is not complexity, it's refusal. And I will not explain that again.